What is up, guys? Welcome to a recap video for UFC Vegas 17. And my goodness, was this the worst prediction I had all year round? Yes, it was. And this goes back before I even made these UFC predictions. For those of you who haven't been on my channel's fairly new. It's probably only a month old. But yeah, this was by far the worst predictions I've had. I've never had my prediction, I've never had more incorrect predictions than correct predictions from any time that I could recall. And in this case, I started off strong. My first two picks were correct. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm on a good night. This week, I took a few more underdogs, I guess, than I should have, but they were underdogs that I felt had potential. Had Jimmy Flick lost his fight, I would have actually been 1-9. 1-10 if that had happened. Luckily, I got at least two predictions right this time. So my total was 2-9. I know some other people killed it. I unfortunately did not. In this case, I did take a few more underdogs. I didn't predict the first fight with minus just because it happened after I had posted my predictions anyway. Or at least the fight was set up after I had posted my predictions. But we're going to get into each fight. I'm just going to break it down on what I noticed, what I thought, how I felt about the fight. And guys, real quick, if you're new to the channel, if you just found my channel, please do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I am trying to build this as we go, and I know I'm a new channel, but I plan to do this consistently for all the fight nights and all the UFC events from here on out. I've been doing them for the past few weeks. I do have to give a shout out to all the people who have already subscribed and commented, and especially those individuals doing predictions who have given me shout outs in the past. So quick shout out to Fight Game Pro. If you don't follow his channel, please go ahead and do so. Some of you probably know him because a few of you have come to my channel from his, just because he gave me a quick shout out. So, and he's one of the guys I follow regularly. I love watching his videos. Another guy that you guys should definitely check out is UFC Gambling Addicts, which is Leighton. They're both amazing people, and I just got to give them props. That being said, into the card, we're going to start with the minus fight. This fight, as I said, I didn't predict at all just because it was set up after I posted my predictions, and I didn't have enough time to look into it since it was set up after the fact. I did say that technically I'm just going to give it to minus because he was already set to fight, and I knew very little about his opponent, his replacement opponent, who came in strong. So let's get into this right now. Minus versus Giagos fight. Honestly, from what I noticed, Minus essentially got ragdolled and manhandled the whole time. He clearly needs to work on his wrestling. I think that's evident. And he was just being pushed and dropped the entire fight. His opponent, as I said, came in last minute. And good on him for everything he did. He worked hard and he clearly got the win. He won all 3 rounds. I'm not sure what Minus's game plan was here. I guess he was focused on training for another fighter, and maybe that played a factor here. But really was not impressed with Minus's performance at all. I think he needs to work on his takedown defense, especially that third round. You saw him turn his back as his opponent was trying to get him down. Which was a total no-no. And it was just by habit, it seemed like he was doing that. Giagos, he showed a lot of heart. You can tell he really wanted to showcase his skills. He did get tired near the very end of the fight though, but I mean, give the guy a break on that because he took the fight short notice. For 90% of that fight, he looked great, and it was, I guess, the last minute or 2 minutes where he kind of looked like he started to fade. So had this been a 5-minute round, maybe it would have gone differently and he would have gassed out. But, 5-round fight, he would have gassed out. But as a 3-round fight, he did pretty well. And of course, he took the win. Next up was a really interesting fight. Flick versus Durden. This is one I was totally torn on as far as the prediction went. I knew that it would come down to essentially wrestling and striking skills versus the submission. At first, I wasn't sure if Flick would be able to even get the submission on Durden because I thought maybe the wrestling might overwhelm him. But, you know, I told you guys that this would come down straight to wrestling versus submission game. And Durden came out. He was kind of dominating in the wrestling, dominating in the striking. And, you know, I was kind of sitting there waiting, what's Jimmy Flick going to do? But at the end of the day, Jimmy was just waiting for the right opportunity. I think he knew exactly what he was going to do here. He got it done with the submission. I guess he got the triangle choke with his legs, right? And sort of pulled Durden in. Durden nearly slipped out of it, but Jimmy just like locked it tight. And that was that. And when that happened, I was super thrilled because exactly essentially how I predicted the fight to play out is exactly what happened. I really, to be honest, I wouldn't mind seeing these guys fight again. Maybe not right away, but, you know, because Durden was technically, in my mind, leading that fight. Jimmy Flick just surprised him with this, you know, just wrapping his legs around his head, which let's just talk about how he did that, because that in itself was pretty impressive. I have high hopes for Jimmy Flick, but I do hope that he works on his other games. His submission is great, but let's bring some other things to the mix, because without that, you know, and let's be honest, like that's not a move you can make every day on every fighter. And now that he's done that with Durden, a lot of people are going to be looking at that for his future fights. So, you know, I'd like to see Jimmy Flick still improve in his other areas of the game, but I was really happy with the way the fight turned out. I predicted that he would win by submission, and that's exactly what happened. Next up, Nchukwi versus Picket. In this fight, I guess like Nchukwi really showed his cardio, right? Because one thing that I was debating was, okay, I know Nchukwi's fairly quick for his size. I know he's got good size too, and I know he's got power, but can he let that run for a potential 3 rounds? That was my only worry in the fight, and in this fight, he proved that he could. And not only that, he took on Jamie Pickett, and I don't know what Pickett's game plan was going on here. In the first, he didn't really seem to do much. It seemed like he did hurt Nchukwi at one point with a strike to the face. I think that happened in the second round, but in the first round, Nchukwi totally dominated that. And another thing to note is essentially, I feel like Pickett did gas out after that last set of punches. Like if you notice, Nchukwi was going to the body a lot. Then what happens is Pickett essentially comes back, and this is when Pickett stunned him. But I feel like the reason why Pickett couldn't finish him and couldn't really continue the punching was because he was gassed out. And I think the reason why he got gassed out was from those body shots that Nchukwi was landing. It was a smart game plan by Nchukwi for sure. In the third round, we totally saw that Nchukwi showed that he did have the cardio. And the funny part is that Pickett was claiming that he was the more experienced fighter, but every time that Pickett tried to do something, Nchukwi essentially capitalized off all the moves. The other thing is that Pickett was going for essentially takedowns the whole time. I think he attempted 3 or 4 takedowns, and every time he attempted this takedown, Nchukwi would just reverse it and end up taking Pickett down, or almost taking Pickett down. The part about the fight IQ when it comes to Pickett that I don't understand is, if you have such great fight IQ, how come you couldn't realize that he was able to reverse every single one of your takedowns every time, and he was doing it the exact same way, and you were letting it happen? So why would you continue that game plan? And that's what I don't understand, is a lot of fighters, like, they have this game plan going in and they kind of keep pushing it even if it doesn't work. And sometimes you got to change it up. Like, you got to understand that this person probably prepared for this, and you know they're not going to take it. So you better find something else, another tool to bring about here. But yeah, Nchukwi for the win, and good on him. That's, I guess, 5 straight wins in the UFC, but it was his first fight that did go the distance. So good on Nchukwi for getting that win. On to the next fight, which is Robertson versus Santos. So I was a little shocked at the first round as we saw Robertson come out early and try to get that armbar. It didn't really work out early, but in the second round I was a little more worried, because in between the break of the first and second round, Robertson looked like she was pretty tired. She was huffing and puffing. Even her responses to her coaches were like, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. You know, she did look just a little bit not just gassed, but she looked like she kind of lost her momentum and kind of lost her drive. The other thing I didn't understand was in between break, when the coach offered her water, she didn't take it. I feel like she could have at least taken a sip of that just to help her out. And it really sucks, because I know that Robertson really relies on that submission, but man, you know, we always see this happen with certain fighters where they think they're going to get this guillotine choke, and then they end up just getting taken to the ground. And that's all fine and dandy if you can work your way back up, or you could take the other fighter and sort of get them submitted. But here Santos was kind of driving into Robertson a lot, and she ended up showing that she had more power and strength on the ground than Robertson did to get the attempt. Now, don't get me wrong, Robertson came close, and I had Robertson to win the fight, but there was about 3 times where she almost got the submission. She could have changed up her game plan and threatened the submission. She could have tried to do more stand-up. Anytime Santos tried to take her down, Jillian essentially accepted it, which I don't like. And I understand your game is submission. I understand you're comfortable on your back and on the ground. But what do you think the other fighter is? Do you think they're not comfortable on on the ground and on top of you? And when you have somebody who's a strong power puncher, you can't let those things happen. So one of my pet peeves, and one thing that I really dislike about certain fighters, is when they just automatically go for a choke as they're being taken down. And rarely do they get that guillotine choke. We've seen it happen. It does happen, but it's not common. So, and you have to have it right away. And she didn't have it right away. It just seemed like she just let Santos take her down. However, it's not like I was impressed with Santos's game. The first 2 rounds, Santos didn't do anything. She just drove Jillian down and just held her there. Like for 10 seconds at a time, you could see Santos just doing absolutely nothing. And I think even the ref encouraged her, like, hey, you got to do something here. And she was just doing silly little strikes. It wasn't anything impressive until the 3rd round, where she really picked it up. And that's where Jillian was already suffering, because Santos essentially picked her apart in the first 2 rounds, got her tired, took out her motivation, took out her drive, and then once that happened, that's when Santos picked it up. Good on Santos for getting the win, but that wasn't an impressive win. And Santos almost got caught a few times. So good on Santos for getting the win, but I was not impressed with her fighting. Let me know what you guys think about that fight in the comments below. I wish that Jillian did have a plan B. There was no way she was going to win this fight without one. And literally, as I said, after the first round, I could tell Jillian was out. And that pains me to say, because I did have Jillian to win. I do think she's a great fighter. She's also Canadian, as I said in the past video, and I'm Canadian, so I always got to root for the home team, right? But yeah, she lost, and she didn't look that great in that fight. Hopefully she bounces back, and still not hyped up on Talia either. Next up, we had Winn versus Arroyo. Well, Winn proved me wrong, but he also proved me right. The same sort of situation as Santos. I feel like Winn was executing that one game plan. It wasn't really working out in the first round, but Arroyo, man, did he gas out quick. I don't know if Winn actually really put on enough pressure where he was completely causing Arroyo to gas out, but apparently he did, because by that 3rd round, you saw it on Arroyo's face. And he just accepted the takedown after takedown after takedown. And what's funny with Arroyo is the head kick was there all day. All day. And he didn't use it not once, I don't think. Deron Winn was way shorter than him. Arroyo has long-ass legs. He didn't use his reach or length at all. Now, on the plus side for Deron, if you do fight a taller fighter, it's you could take them down easier, because they're more top heavy in a sense. If you're shorter, you have a low center of gravity, you could cover those takedowns a lot easier. So in this sense, Deron did have an advantage there. But were any of you at all impressed with Deron's fighting? I feel like these past 2 fights, the people who won weren't really impressive wins. They made it happen. I don't think Deron Winn is going to be in the UFC for very long. I predicted that they would let him go if he lost this fight, and I predicted that he would be somebody who leaves the UFC and potentially comes back at a later time. I think that's going to happen either way. I don't know how many fights he has left on his contract, but if he's got 1 or 2 fights left on his contract, don't expect to see Deron Winn after 2021. But good on him for getting the win. Another incorrect pick, and this is where things started to snowball for me. Because after the Jillian, Robertson, and Santos fight, I essentially got every single one of my picks wrong. It is what it is, guys. It is what it is. You know, I take all my losses and all my wins the same. So I have no problem admitting that, hey, I was wrong in these picks. But I just want you guys to understand that, and I'm not making excuses, but I did go a little more heavy on some underdogs here. And I did think that a lot of people had more potential than I guess they showed. Also, I was relying on fighters that weren't underdogs to lose the fight because they just hadn't looked great recently. Like, for example, the Winn and Arroyo fight. Like, let's be honest, Duran Winn, he still didn't look great. He doesn't look great in general. I would still bet against him time and time again. I just don't think he's a great fighter. I think he's great in wrestling, but I don't think he's an overall great fighter. And I think when he fights somebody that's more experienced, maybe beyond Arroyo, who was telling his coaches to literally wait and be quiet while he sorted it out. No, dude, listen to your coaches, because what you're doing isn't working out. Instead of fighting, he was telling his coaches like, okay, just give me a sec. And it's like, hey, they're calling you to do something. Do it. That's what they're there for. Next fight, Kianzad versus Eubanks. So I actually ended up missing this fight because I got an important phone call. So I caught like the last 30 seconds of it. It seemed like Kianzad must have been leading the entire time. I only caught the end, so I don't really know. I had Eubanks to win. I think most people had Eubanks to win, but Kianzad did prove us all wrong. She came out there, she got it done. I guess she was maybe more technical, did more stand-up striking. I'm not sure if Sajara tried to take her down. I'm sure she did do a couple of takedown attempts, but they probably didn't work out, and Kianzad was either able to get up or she was able to maneuver and refuse the takedown and defend against it. Penny did hurt the bridge of her nose. I thought Sajara would have had Kianzad down. That wasn't the case. But yeah, I had Eubanks for that one. She didn't win. But, you know, either way, I like both of these fighters. And, you know, Eubanks is doing well. And Kianzad, I hope she continues to do well. I'm not opposed to either of these fighters. And I think they both probably brought it. So good on both of them. Good on Kianzad for winning. I'm going to keep my eye on Kianzad. And let's go on to the next fight, which is Pettis versus Morono. Now, this is one where I had said that people are underestimating Morono. You know, in the first round, we saw that Morono was doing well early in the first round, and then slowly Anthony Pettis started to figure out Morono and picked him apart. And Morono had Anthony Pettis' back for the majority of the first round. He seemed to really have had him injured as well. And Anthony Pettis actually looked tired. He was grabbing for air while they were in that position. Anthony turned it around in the end of the first round, and in the second round, he kind of got back up. But yeah, by the end of the first round, Pettis was essentially coming back, and we saw Morono be a little more hesitant on the feet. I don't know what that was about. I feel like, just like the commentators was saying, Anthony Pettis was luring him in circles around the ring. And I mean, Alex Morono kept falling for it and kept pushing. And I guess this is where the fight experience and the veteran capabilities of Pettis sort of shined, as opposed to Morono, you know, being that new fighter coming in and working his way up. He didn't see that. So I guess Morono just needs to increase some fight IQ. I think had he not followed Anthony's trail and Anthony's path of just cycling around and around and around the octagon, that he would have done a better job. But Anthony still looked quick, and you know, I had questions about Anthony because of the fact that he's starting that Showtime group, the management company. I thought maybe, you know, he's trying to work his way out of the UFC, but he looked great, and it looked like he completely trained for this fight, and he was ready to go. So I think that Anthony still has promising capabilities. He's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Hopefully he sticks around. Hopefully he continues his way up. And, you know, all the best to Morono. I think he just has to gain some more experience and some more fight IQ, and hopefully he comes back with another strong win. But also, like, I want you guys to understand, the reason why I picked Morono was because the odds were fairly wide, especially for that first round that we saw. In the second and third, sure, they were probably on par, but the first round, before the fight started, that's why I picked Morono. It was essentially a value bet. I'm not mad at that pick. I'm more upset that I picked based on value, which I don't commonly do. And I think this is why this was my worst pick of the night, is because usually I pick the person I think is going to win. In this case, I picked the people who I thought had more value. So next up, we go to Tybura versus Hardy. In this fight, I thought that Hardy just showed how tough and powerful he really is. He started picking apart Tybura that first round, and this seemed to have been like a theme throughout the entire UFC night, where maybe some of these underdogs were winning at the beginning or in the first round and then just started getting picked apart towards the second and third rounds. So Hardy did really well in the first round, or first half of the second round. He did start to look a little tired in the second half. My biggest worry was that Tybura would eventually get the takedown. So by the end of the second half, I was really watching to see if that would happen. I feel like Hardy was able to defend those takedowns, but then Tybura exhausts his energy. And I was pretty confident that at that point, Tybura would continue to get those takedowns in the third round. So at that point, I kind of got more worried for my pick on Hardy. And of course, this is where experience came back to bite me and Hardy in the butt, because that's essentially what Tybura figured out. Hardy started gassing out, Tybura took him down, and we all saw what happened. And, you know, this was the test for Hardy, is, as I said in my prediction videos, like, if Hardy does well against Tybura, then we could see him be very much more promising against these top elite athletes and fighters. The wrestling skills, the takedown, the cardio, all of those things came back to bite him in the ass. So if he can sort of strengthen those areas and come back, good on Tybura for his win. This was an incorrect pick for me, though. Next up, Marlon Moraes versus Rob Font. Oh, man. Marlon Moraes. I fall for it every time, guys. I fall for it every time. I think here's this guy. He's fast. He's skilled. He's been at the top of the food chain. And after this loss, you know, no offense to Moraes, but it seemed like maybe Rob Font is just amazing. Like, he is really good. But after being beat like that, and, you know, getting kicked to the head in your last fight, and then even the fight before that, gassing out and losing to Cejudo. For an experienced fighter like Moraes, you don't expect him to lose in these ways. So I have officially lost faith in Moraes. I do hope he comes back. Good on Rob Font for winning this fight. I think he did a great job. But yeah, not much really to say here other than probably my most disappointing loss or incorrect pick of the night was Moraes, I would say. Next up, Pereira versus Williams. So at the start of this, Pereira seemed like he was obviously the more active in movement, but Williams looked like he was more patient, and then also the strikes he was landing was maybe more accurate and hard. I think here Williams had the strategy to counter punch, and that's essentially what he did the first round, and we saw him hurt Pereira a little bit with that punch. But Pereira kept moving forward, still right to the end of the round. I actually was unsure how the judges were scoring the rounds, because although Pereira looked active, he wasn't throwing that much. And I think the problem here for Chaos, the reason why he lost the fight, was simply because he didn't look as active. He was waiting for Pereira to do something. Meanwhile, Pereira was jumping around, moving side to side. And I think that just changed the way the judges scored the card, especially obviously in that third round where Pereira just kind of took over the end there and threw a torpedo of punches at Chaos to end the round. And at that point, I had it for Pereira to win, but originally I had Chaos Williams winning the fight. No, let's not take away anything from Pereira. He is looking great. He's starting to look a lot better. He's not gassing himself out. He's still moving. He's still being a little wild, but very much more conservative. I'm liking what I see out of Pereira now. I truly think that he does have an opportunity, as long as he keeps this fight IQ growing and getting better as far as his strategy goes, and going into fights knowing that he doesn't want to expel all of his energy in, you know, the first 30 seconds or by doing jumping jacks. But you see, when he gets comfortable, he starts doing more of those things. When he thinks he's got a lead in the fight, he starts being more crazy. So hopefully he continues the trend of being a little more conservative, and in that case, I could see him really working his way to the top of the food chain. Next up, Aldo versus Vera. Aldo's back, baby. Why does Aldo have to win the fights that I predict he loses? But to be honest, like, I got to give him credit. Like, maybe he's not done. I said that this isn't going to be the Aldo that we saw 4 years ago. And it kind of wasn't. I mean, he wasn't overly impressive. Here's what I didn't like about Aldo's game was in the third round, he essentially had the choke on Marlon Vera, but he wasn't putting pressure on it. Like, he wasn't going for it. Even Vera at times was like putting his arms in the air like, look, you got me with a choke and you're still not putting pressure on it. He was surprised. So there's this weird, I don't know what Jose Aldo was doing in the end, but I feel like he wasn't trying to finish. He was just trying to win by points and survive. And, you know, that's not the Aldo I remember. I don't know if it's the Aldo that you guys remember, but once again, okay, Aldo won. Good on him. I wasn't impressed with his win. I wasn't even impressed with his fight. You know, I feel like Cheeto fought badly, but Aldo didn't fight great. It's not like Aldo did anything amazing. And even we saw, like, even his Marlon's coaches were telling him, put him on his back foot and he's going to have trouble. But as long as you let him come to you, he's going to start winning the fight. And Marlon didn't really listen to his coaches, or at least didn't implement what they were saying. And as a result, Aldo won. I'm still not upset at this bet. I think this was actually probably one of the better options for my underdog pick. Good on Aldo for winning, but I still don't have faith in him to get back to the very top of the food chain. You know, I don't see his ranking climbing super high. You know, I think Marlon Vera was 11th or 12th in the rankings, and Aldo was 10th. So let's see what happens next with Aldo, who he's going to fight. But it wasn't sort of a highlight night for Aldo. Let's put it that way. And then the last fight we had was Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Geoff Neal. And boy, did Thompson make Neal look flat or what. I don't have any problem if your major strength is one thing, like in the Robertson fight, submission, you know, Jimmy Flick fight, submission. In the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight with Geoff Neal, you know, Geoff Neal power puncher, knockout power. But it really irritates me to see these fighters rely on one aspect of their game to win the fight. And of course, in 25 minutes, you figured Geoff Neal was going to touch up Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at least once. And he kind of did in some areas, but he didn't really phase him too much. Wonderboy was always able to wrap around it, get on the outside and work his way out, and then maybe throw a punch or a kick to sort of defend and move from there. But slowly but surely, over 5 rounds, Wonderboy took over that fight. But what irritates me about Wonderboy, and I'm sorry to always state the negatives on these people who won that I don't pick, but I think it's important to also talk about these aspects of these winners and what they do well and what they do poorly. And I think one thing that Wonderboy always does poorly is, why do you always have to go 5 rounds, dude? Like, for the most part, I'm not saying always, but it just seems like he could have picked apart Neal quicker. He was being way too cautious about that punch. You know, he had gotten hit a few times. He took those punches and just, dude, like, try to finish it. You had 5 rounds. And the thing is, like, the longer those rounds go, the more opportunity you're giving Geoff Neal. And Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, especially lately, he comes out beat up at the end of his fights. Like, you guys saw his face. I don't need to tell you. And if this continues to happen, you're just reducing the longevity of your fight career. I think although Thompson fought a smart fight, I think he needs to start being more aggressive and not so counter strike intuitive. I feel like Jose Aldo is a little bit of the same case. These are guys who can finish their fights, but for some reason choose not to. Steven could have ended that in the 3rd round, in the 4th round. I saw holes in Geoff Neal's game that weren't apparent before, where the threat just wasn't there anymore. And Stephen Thompson didn't take advantage of it, but he was active. Don't get me wrong. He was throwing, he was landing, he was doing everything he had to do, and he fought a great game plan. But I think one area where Thompson, if there's anything he needs to work on, It's trying to finish his fights and not be so defensive and counter-strike intuitive. All right, guys, so that's the end of the UFC Vegas 17 recap video. Before you all take off and, close this video and move on to your next YouTube video, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. As I mentioned before, my channel's fairly new. I am trying to build it. I know I just got 9 losses, 9 wrong predictions and 2 correct. I hope you all did much better than me. I actually was talking to a buddy of mine because I was pretty sour about this yesterday. I'm like, man, it just sucks when you do these prediction videos and then you only get 2 right and 9 of your picks were incorrect. But he made a good point. He's like, well, that's okay, because if you continuously get bad picks, then everyone will still watch your videos because they know which one not to, like which fighter not to pick. So I thought that was pretty funny. So if I consistently start getting bad picks, you guys can watch my videos just to know who not to bet on instead of who to bet on. But hopefully that doesn't continue to happen. This was my worst card of the entire year as far as predictions go. Usually I'm on the ball. That being said, I hope any of you who have done prediction videos or any of you who had some picks or some bets this week did well or did much better than me. But let's kick this bucket over. It's going to be a fresh new year next year. Between now and then, we got a lot of time to just chill and relax. So I hope you guys have a happy holidays. I hope you guys have a happy new year. And we will catch you in, I believe, mid-January is when the next UFC is. So we'll catch you all mid-January. Thank you guys for watching so much. I am the MMA Hoodie. Peace out.